Well, hello, everyone. We are live. This is welcome to the office hours with for Laravel. We're going to be answering your questions, any questions that you might have regarding Nightwatch, Laravel Cloud, really anything. Anything's off. Anything is on limits. Nothing is off limits this morning. So yeah, so glad to have everyone here. I'm super excited to be able to kick this off and get this going. So yeah, if you are joining us, let me know where you are watching from. For me, I'm in Arizona. It's my morning time, so it is 8 a.m. Here this Friday morning. But yeah, if you, regardless of where you are, let me know where you're watching from, and I'm excited to be able to hang out with you, to chat with you, to answer your questions that you might have. Good morning, Ryan from South Africa. I assume I actually don't know time zone in South Africa, but what time is it there for you? Theon from India, glad to have you here today. Thanks for joining the office hours. Pablo from Poland, glad to have you here today. Yadi, when PHP implement asynchronous programming? Well, the cool thing is there's a couple of people who are kind of figuring this out, I guess, in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's not necessarily core PHP members, but Nuno Maduro from the Laravel team has a asynchronous package that he's been working on, as well as the creator of Breath. I know that he was working on some asynchronous PHP stuff as well. So yeah, who knows? It's a lot sooner than we think. Code with SJM from Tanzania. Glad to have you here. Hopefully everything's coming through all right for you all. Let me know if anything sounds or looks a little funky as well. But glad to have you all here. Again, welcome to Office Hours. My name is Josh. I'm on the Laravel team. And yeah, the whole goal today is just to be able to answer your questions, and then also be able to just share a little bit about what's going on with Laravel Nightwatch, some updates that I find personally exciting, but then also just be able to hang out with you. If you have any questions about Laravel Nightwatch, Laravel Cloud, really anything, there's nothing off limits. But the goal of today is mostly just to be able to answer your questions. Again, hang out with you, have some fun. Maybe learn some new things together. Let's see. Henry, hi from the Philippines. Glad to have you here. Arslan from Pakistan. Glad to have you here. So 5 p.m. in South Africa. Okay, so it is. That wouldn't make sense because it'd be close to that region. Okay, yeah. So 5 p.m. 10:03, 22:03, now in Laos. Glad to have you here. And thanks for joining us on the X, the everything platform. Shigo, oh yeah, 5 p.m. So yeah, you did it faster than me. I probably could have looked it up. Alexander on LinkedIn, glad to have you here from the Netherlands. Mohammed from Algeria, glad to have you here. Mohammed from Bangladesh, glad to have you here. Fad from Egypt. Jay from India. Lee, hello there. Glad to have you here. Where are you watching from, Lee? Christopher, hello from the UK. How's it going? It is going pretty good today. I'm excited. I like office hours. I like hanging out with all of you. I like being able to just answer your questions. I like being able to see, where the day takes us in a lot of ways, and also just being able to share a little bit about what I'm learning and the fun things that are kind of going along with updates to Laravel, updates to Nightwatch, to Cloud, all those fun things. Raphael from Panama, glad to have you here. Harris, glad to have you here. I got to meet Harris at Laravel Live UK a couple weeks ago, so it was awesome. Zenga from Kenya, glad to have you here. Dhruvan, apologize if I say that incorrectly, from India, glad to have you here. Rice, 11 a.m. DR, I assume Dominican Republic. I apologize if I'm incorrect on that. Reginaldo, Brazil. I love it. Brazil mentioned. 8 p.m. from Pakistan. Always wait for new things from the Laravel team. Awesome. Well, hopefully there's might be a couple of things I get to share that came out with Laravel Nightwatch this week, and hopefully you might have heard of them or might not have heard of them, and then they might be new to you. Those are the couple of things I kind of have on my mind to share at least. Will there be a Nightwatch that can be installed locally and run locally, sort of like how Horizon works? Currently, so just answered this on the Q&A last week, I believe. I can't remember when that happened, but not at the current time, in the sense that there are no plans to do that, to have it be run locally. You can definitely install the agent locally and have like a different environment set up for local environments. I've done that for some of my current projects. And I know some folks do that for their development projects as well. So yeah, you definitely can run it locally, in the sense that you're running your dev environment, but it's sending to Nightwatch. It's not, it's not self-hosted. So currently there's no plans for a self-hosted version. Dimitro from Ukraine, glad to have you here. Dev Oracle on Twitter, hi from Abuja, Nigeria. Shigo, why should we switch from Sentry to Nightwatch? Again, I think like there's different tools for different things, and Nightwatch, I would say, is set up currently to be able to just handle Laravel things. So it uses Laravel. Because we use Laravel behind the scenes, it is set up to specifically handle things specifically for Laravel. I know the Laravel team, for example, uses both Sentry and Nightwatch currently, specifically because within Nightwatch, we don't have the ability yet to do any kind of front-end monitoring. So that might be something to keep in mind. And you can definitely do both. Race, hello, 11 a.m. from Dominican Republic. Glad to have you here. Any plan for a course on React, Inertia, TypeScript? I wouldn't say there's specific plans for that, but in the sense that one of the things that the team and myself are kind of working on currently is something called Laravel Learn. And so I guess like if you're in the chat here this morning, you might get a little sneak peek into it. Laravel Learn is something that the team is currently working on to replace the boot camp. If any of you kind of remember, there was a bootcamp.laravel.com, which was a fantastic kind of text-based course to walk through how to build out a full stack application called Chirper, using every stack that Laravel had to offer within Laravel Breeze. And when Laravel starter kits came, we kind of hid that for a little bit, just because it wasn't relevant. And so Laravel Learn will allow us to kind of have the functionality and the flexibility, I guess, to have kind of those micro courses. So I know that the team at Laracast is doing a fantastic job, and they have some great courses on React and TypeScript. I know Simon V, I'll never be able to pronounce his last name. So for those who know who I'm talking about, Simon, who now is on the Laracast team, he has a great React course where he kind of goes into TypeScript a little bit. But again, there might be some plans for kind of like a micro course with that of in terms of React, Inertia, and TypeScript. I would say one thing to kind of look for is I recently released like a template with the Laravel team as a AI template, and that uses React, Inertia, and TypeScript. So it might be a good thing to kind of look into, in addition to starter kits, to be able to say, hey, might be a good way to use that. But there's no course around that just yet from our side. Alberto from Spain, glad to have you. Ashley, glad to have you in the chat. Harris is awesome. He is. You're right. And right back at you. Awesome. Sammy from Kosovo, 5 p.m. Awesome. Amin, hi. Glad to have you here. Hello. Showstopper. Only reason I bring this up is because in South Africa, we have to keep South African data within the country. Okay. I see. I don't know. So like I guess the goal with Laravel Nightwatch and the team would be to then make sure that we have as many regions covered. So South Africa is the one that we currently offer. I don't necessarily know when a region like that might be available. But I know the team is working hard to make sure that we have as many regions available so that the data stays within your country. So currently we have the US and the EU, but there are plans for more as well that the team is actively working on. Christopher Miller, here's a fun one. What's the one feature you wish Laravel had that it doesn't right now? Wow, that's a great question. I love these types of questions. So if you are like Christopher, yeah, and ask me any of these types of questions. I love hearing this. What's one feature you wish Laravel had that it doesn't right now? One of the things that I've been diving into recently, and this isn't really necessarily a Laravel feature, but there are parts of this that I think could fit into Laravel, and this is probably more of a package rather than something that exists within the Laravel framework. But one of the things that I've been kind of learning more about is the local first kind of scene. And so if you're not familiar with it, a lot of apps, specifically in the JavaScript world, or even just like mobile apps, are moving into this like local first kind of scene where you save instances to a database that is locally stored within a browser. That would be like IndexedDB. Within a mobile app, that's something like a SQLite database that lives, it's an embedded database. And I think there is potential, and it's something I've tinkered with as well, specifically within Livewire. But I think there would be it'd be a feature that would be really nice for the Laravel framework as a whole, in the sense of being able to work with IndexedDB a little bit closely. To like imagine having eloquent ORM. But having it sync first to an IndexedDB, if you so choose, before it connects to your connected database. So I think it is kind of two-part. It would have to be an adapter for Livewire or for Inertia, but it also would be in part also part of a Laravel framework. So I guess that's one feature I wish Laravel had that doesn't right now. Again, I think someone could definitely build that. I've tinkered around with it a little bit. Nothing set in stone, and it is a lot to think through. There are folks who have made this easier. There's like a TanStack package in the that is kind of framework agnostic that allows you to kind of connect with the database as well as an IndexedDB and keep those in sync a little bit. But if that was local or first party to Laravel, then I wouldn't be opposed to that. But that's something that I have personally been digging into more, and who knows, I might take a weekend or take a week and try to figure that out as well. How would a self-hosted version even work? Do you guys have any AWS in your shed? Florian does bring up a good point. Florian works with me on the Laravel team. He works on cloud. But yeah, Nightwatch, there is a lot more than just collecting data. It's not in the same sense as something like Laravel Horizon, where you are just sending data to one endpoint and then it's just capturing, collecting all that data. A self-hosted version would be a little bit tricky because there are so many parts that Laravel Nightwatch kind of spins up. There's a lot of different moving pieces in how it collects data, specifically with how it collects data in ClickHouse and then makes sure it distributes it after that. So there's like a lot of different moving parts, and it would be pretty intensive, which is why I believe, again, I can't speak for the Nightwatch team, but I know that this is what Jess had kind of mentioned in the Q&A, is that this is one of the main reasons why there is no self-hosted version, and probably won't be. But yeah, I definitely get the need for keeping it in your own region. So that's the goal, is making as many regions available as possible. Leah, hi, glad to have you here. Hopefully you're getting some good work done this morning. What kind of monster do you have? I know Leah is a fan of the white monsters, or she has been a fan of before, so we'll see which one she's having this morning. I have not opened it up, but I have a Dr. Pepper here I'm going to open up. Dr. Pepper, cherry, zero sugar. It is morning for me, but I am not a huge coffee person. So usually any kind of like caffeine, I'm drinking some kind of zero sugar soda or pop for those in the Midwest. I don't have any Coke Zeros anymore. So sorry, Laravel team, but this is a Dr. Pepper. What's your all's choice of drink in the morning or for a late night coding? Coffee, energy drink, what is it? Harris, spin up some mini cubes. Exactly. There you go. I don't know what mini cubes are, but I'll figure it out, I guess. Are we not supposed to have a mini AWS shed? Yeah, I should probably take that down in the backyard then. I didn't know that was not a thing. Shigo, no front end yet. Are there plans? Oh yeah, so for Laravel Nightwatch, there is no front end support yet, in the sense that it is everything back end related for the for everything Laravel. So any event that gets sent to Laravel, so that would be a request, an exception, a queue, a job, a mailer, there's probably a couple others that I'm missing, but basically anything that either gets sent to Laravel or gets sent from Laravel in your application gets sent to Laravel Nightwatch, that is sent to the server. There is no front end monitoring yet, in the sense that there is no, if something doesn't even make it to the server, it's not going to make it to Nightwatch, because Nightwatch uses the server to collect and send all that information. There are plans. Jess mentioned last week on the Nightwatch Q&A stream that there are plans to have, to have front end stuff that the team is actively working on. There's no set date for that or what it even might look like, but it's definitely something that they want to tackle next. One of the bigger ones that they want to tackle next. Mateus, hey, glad to have you here. Thanks so much for joining. How are things going? How's work going this morning? Or I believe it's still morning for you. I can't remember your specific time zone. It might be afternoon for you, actually. I apologize. I have a full on AWS shed. You mean you don't? Okay, so who doesn't have a full AWS shed in the chat this morning? That's the main question, I guess. Mine is more like a cupboard. Ashley's doing all the terminal stuff. So if you haven't checked out Ashley, for those in the chat, be sure to check out Ashley on Twitter. I don't believe you're doing anything on YouTube just yet, Ashley. But yeah, check out some of Ashley's terminal stuff that he's doing within Laravel, specifically with MCP stuff. It is fantastic. I got to hear Ashley's talk at Laravel Live UK about MCPs, and I've even implemented some more MCPs since I've listened to his talk. Simon V is incredible. You are right. He's got a good set of hair too. So that good set of hair and a nice dog. He's got a corgi. He's the not the typical. I don't want to put him into a box, but Simon would be what I would imagine is the typical surfer, or what I would hope I would look like if I was a surfer. How to upload images to Laravel Cloud? Please help. Okay, this is a great question. Mostly because I just recently did uploads for an application that I was working on. This was a mobile app that I was sending to a Laravel API. So why don't I share my screen and we can kind of walk through what that looks like. But really, it comes down to using, let me go ahead and pull this up. Really, it comes down to using, present my screen. Perfect. I'm going to open up this one right here. Perfect. So really it comes down to using the AWS S3 package. So when you have a bucket set up within Laravel Cloud, so we'll go ahead and go into buckets. I'll just do Laravel Object Storage right here. Okay. So Laravel Object Store is powered by Cloudflare R2. So anything that you set up to send it to Laravel Cloud is going to be done through the S3 file system driver. So the biggest thing, and I actually forgot this when I was setting this up within my own package. I did everything. I set up my code was, the way it should have been, but I forgot to install the Fly System AWS S3 package. So this is a big thing to remember, because the storage is connecting with Cloudflare 2, R2, and R2 is S3 compatible. You just have to make sure that you have this package installed. Once this package is installed and you do have a bucket attached to your Laravel cloud system, then you will be able to just store to it. And a thing to note is whatever you call this bucket, you're going to have the option. I don't know if I'm sharing all my screens. I am not. But when you create this bucket, you're going to have the option of naming it, as well as selecting if this is going to be a public disk and a default disk. Usually by default, you are setting that bucket as public, I believe is the default, as well as the default disk. And you can make any name for it. Usually I would just kind of, I would name it like my project name. But then whatever you name it is what you're going to use within the storage facade. Now you can omit this name here. So if you have storage disk, you can omit that R2 name, and it's just going to use the default disk. And if you had set up this bucket, let's say you have multiple buckets attached and one is default, but one is private, or one is default and public and one is private and not default, then that's when you'll have to use the specific named parameter. So really that's what it comes down to. And here's like a good indicator within this link. I'll go ahead and share this within the chat. So we'll go and paste that in. But basically the goal or difference between private buckets and public buckets when it comes to the R2 system within Laravel Cloud is that private files are not going to be accessible to the internet. So they are accessible to your backend in the sense that when you save them, you can maybe access them within a queue, but they're not going to be things that you can then send to an API, for example, because they would have to access them. But you can use this temporary URL method if you want to keep them private. Again, this is probably great for personal documents or uploaded by your application's users. Public buckets are for everything else. So this is like profile pictures or just publicly viewable assets that might be needed to be viewed by your application. And you wouldn't want to have a temporary URL for something like a storage picture, for example. So yeah, I would say check out this documentation. But the really biggest thing is just making sure you have that Fly System AWS S3 driver installed. There shouldn't be anything else that you need to do in your application, in the sense that you don't need to change any environment variables or anything like that, because as soon as you add the bucket to Laravel Cloud, then you're able to set up the storage driver like so. So I would say in your code, and I would say this is great regardless if you're using Laravel Cloud or not. Use the system provided by Laravel. In this case, use the storage driver. It's always going to use, if you omit a name, it's always going to use the default disk. And then regardless if you're hosting on Laravel Cloud or something like that, then you don't have to change your code when you want to maybe host on Laravel Cloud and use the R2 buckets. Or if you're hosting on Forge, the storage parameter would be exactly the same if you were using, local driver for that storage. So I would say usually in your code, make sure you just use the default disk, something like storage git or storage put, for example. Yeah, but great question. I love it. Let's go ahead and let's see. Again, glad to have everyone here. For those just joining, welcome. And if you are just joining, make sure to like and subscribe. We try to do more of these office hours, and that lets us know if we should do more of these office hours. I personally like them, and I think we're trying to do them at least once a month, but maybe more. So let us know if this is something you'd like to see more. But if you have any questions about Laravel, about Nightwatch, about Cloud, I'd love to answer them, or at least point you in the direction where we can answer them better. There's some smarter people in the chat here than me, like Florian for example, and that would be great to get everyone questions answered, but mostly also it's a great time for me to hang out with you, to talk with you, to chat with you, and to ask you questions as well. I guess like one question as I'm continuing to work through these comments, one question is, what is something that you have learned about your application from Laravel Nightwatch? If you have installed Laravel Nightwatch, what's one thing that you're like, oh, I didn't know my application did that or didn't do that? Let me know. Let me know. Just want to say, I love Cloud and Nightwatch. I've been migrating from Forge to Cloud and definitely love it. Awesome. I don't know if there's any Forge engineers in the chat, but we like both Forge and Cloud. But if Cloud works better for you, great. I love it. For those Forge users in the chat, I still use Forge. I actually use all. I use Forge, Vapor, and Nightwatch, mostly because there's stuff that I just need or it's just easier to do on all of them. But I'm excited for Laracon because there are going to be some fun Forge announcements that will be coming up. James, who is the Forge and kind of core services lead, has been kind of teasing some things on Twitter/X as well. So, but glad you're loving Cloud and Nightwatch. I've had trouble when configuring wildcard subdomains. It takes forever to validate. I couldn't get it to happen. Okay. That might be something that would be great if you could reach out to support, depending on if it's taking longer than 24 hours. So usually the time frame is if sometimes just domains, Cloudflare, which is what we're using to kind of set up those domains. Jason Beggs, I don't know if he's in the chat this morning, but he is kind of like the master or the ringleader of domains. And sometimes they take a long time and sometimes they take an hour. And it's just kind of up to, the internet as a whole and how long it takes. So I'd say if it takes longer than 24 hours, then that would be a time to then reach out to support. And there might be something that is stuck on our end or maybe Cloudflare's end that we can just reinstigate in a lot of ways. But yeah, domains just in general, DNS certificates, like sometimes they just propagate forever and it sucks, but I'm sorry that's happening. Florian Nightwatch is in a service that runs everywhere, somewhere. It's a globally distributed architecture of Kafka. Lemon is a massive DB hosted by ClickHouse. That's not something you can self-host, just not possible. True, exactly. There is so much that is kind of going along with that, and it probably would be a pain to do. Even when I run it locally for demos, for example, it is not really run locally, if you know what I mean. It is being, there's a lot of different pieces that are kind of just faked in a lot of ways because you can't really run it locally. Maro, I'd be curious to know if Brazil will be considered soon. All my customers are in Latin America. I don't necessarily know. I can ask the Nightwatch team. I don't know the next order in terms of regions, in terms of what is coming down the pipeline. I don't know what that is next. I would imagine probably something like, and I don't know if this is for Nightwatch or for Cloud or both. I would imagine that something like that is coming soon, or at least like it's something that is definitely considered. Like there's not. I think the goal is definitely all regions as soon as possible. I don't necessarily know the order in which that is going to happen, but yeah, definitely be continuing to check it out. And also just it's helpful to let us know too. And this is something that I personally take notes on, as well as letting the team know, to be like, okay, hey, there's a couple of people who would love to do this. But yeah, like Florian said, more regions are definitely coming through, so you can keep your data in your country. Course on task scheduling. Okay. I'm going to take a note on this. Junior, what would you mean by task scheduling? So specifically using Laravel scheduler, would this be using like creating a task scheduler in the sense of like a to-do list, but you're scheduling tasks, or is this kind of like AI task scheduler where you're like telling it to do something at specific times? I'm curious what that means on a whole. If it's something like just a course on, like a micro course on the Laravel scheduler, like what that is, how to do it, I would think that would be a fantastic fantastic idea. I love that idea. Again, one of the things that we're trying to focus on when it comes to Laravel Learn is the ability to kind of take these concepts, and like if I was to do a video on YouTube about task scheduling or the scheduler, one, it would probably be either a really long video. I would say, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, maybe even longer if I wanted to dive into more depth, but it doesn't allow us to kind of like walk through specific things. It doesn't really suit as well for YouTube. And so that's one of the things we want, is a different ability or a different place to be able to place these kind of micro-based learning in a lot of ways. Sammy from Kosovo on LinkedIn, glad to have you here. Can we adjust queries and schedule task sample rates? So you cannot adjust the sample rate for that. But one of the things I did want to kind of share, let me bring up the Nightwatch documentation really quick, because this kind of leads into one of the things I am really excited about that just launched this week. Perfect. We'll go here. So for those who don't know, I'll just kind of give a very brief intro into what sampling is and how that kind of correlates to the Laravel Nightwatch. Sampling basically says, instead of sending everything to Nightwatch, instead of sending every single event, every single exception, every single command, every single request, I want to send only part of those. And so we have the ability to sample specific things, to say, okay, I want every exception, I want every command, but for every request, I only want 10% of those. And so the goal then is to be able to say, okay, for those request sampling, how do I then only, I don't use up every single sampling that I have, or every single event request that I have. So for example, for the free tier within Laravel Nightwatch, you have 200,000 request events that are kind of set up within Laravel Nightwatch. And so like you can run through those free events pretty quickly. But you have request and command exception sampling, so that you can capture all exceptions from the sampled request, but then you can capture 50% of exceptions from non-sampled requests, for example. But the thing that I want to point out now is, while there is so the question is like, can we adjust queries and schedule task sample rate? There is nothing yet to be able to say, let me sample 50%, 10% of all queries. It is specifically requests, which I guess would kind of lump in queries and schedule tasks for the most part. And I guess scheduled tasks would probably fall more into the command, while queries would probably fall more into the request. If you did want to get granular, that is not available yet, to say I only want 10% of queries specifically and 10% of scheduled tasks specifically. But this route-based sampling is one that I want to kind of make note of. And I'm actually going to drop this in the chat as well. But the route-based sampling is really interesting, because then you get to use this sample facade that the Nightwatch team has kind of put together. And you can say, I want to, then let's say you turn off, you have this unmatched routes sampling. You can sample, use the sample middleware with the fallback route. And so the goal with this route-based sampling is, let's say you have 10% of, and I could be wrong on the math here, so I'll double check this, and if anyone in the chat knows or has tested this, or might be able to read this a lot faster than I can in a lot of ways. But I believe if you have exceptions sampling, or let's say request sampling of 10%, you can even granularize or in more granular detail, then sample specific routes. So all 10% of requests are going to come through, but for this specific route, only 0.5 or 50% of those 10% requests are actually coming through. And so then that way it's helpful to then sample in a route-based functionality as well. And so let's say, for example, your queries or schedule tasks, maybe they are hitting a route in order to kickstart those, or most of your queries are coming through and you realize 90% of your queries are coming through this one particular route. I would start with route-based sampling. Again, the team is aware of being able to have those more granular details, especially when it comes to queries and things like that. But that's the first step that I would kind of take a look at. So, and one of the things to kind of note as well is this dynamic sampling piece, in the sense that that Nightwatch sample method, you can call that directly for this fine-grained control, where things like queries that Nightwatch doesn't yet provide sampling capabilities for, we could call this within maybe a particular query that you have to make sure that the sample rate is only sampling X% of these executions. So I would call this maybe in your most expensive query, or one that just consistently happens and you don't necessarily want every single query from that particular even function to come through, or method, then use the dynamic sampling piece. So there's so much flexibility that can come within these dynamic samplings within the Nightwatch sample method, as well as the sample routes. So I would check that out as well. But currently, there is not queries and scheduled task sample rate out of the box within sampling, but it's something that the team I know is working on. João from Brazil, or I'll say Paulo because that's a little bit easier for me as a white person to pronounce it. So I apologize that I pronounced your name incorrectly. But Paulo, glad to have you here from Brazil. Mauro, I'm more interested in lower latency. What do you mean by that? Curious what you mean by that. Is that specifically for I guess like because you had asked about the different regions. So yeah, different regions definitely helps with lower latency, as well as like your customers are there and for security reasons you need it to be stored in the same location. Definitely. Muhammad from Pakistan, glad to have you here on LinkedIn. Christopher, I like the idea. I know just the guy to build it too. What's Aaron up to right now? Yeah, I'm assuming that's the local first idea. Maybe I'm still catching up to chat, so I know I'm very far behind on chat. So I apologize for everyone just joining. We're catching up to chat as well. Again, thank you so much for joining. My name is Josh. I'm on the Laravel team, and this is what we're calling office hours. So the goal is for me to hang out with you, to be able to answer your questions, get to chat with you, maybe ask you questions specifically, especially if you ask me a question, I'm probably going to ask a follow-up question with it. But yeah, let us know where you're joining from, and if you haven't already, and yeah, let us know what is something that we can make office hours better for you specifically. Let's go ahead and see. 6:14 p.m. now in Yemen. Awesome. Well, glad to have you from Yemen, Ahmed. Glad to have you here from on X and Twitter. Perfect. Let's go ahead. Let's see. What is one Inertia.js feature you want that doesn't exist? I would say, I guess top of my mind is like that's still the local first thing, because that kind of wraps up everything. It wraps up Inertia. It wraps up Laravel. But I guess one of the things that I want that doesn't exist yet is probably something that you might see more of either at Laracon or post Laracon, maybe even pre Laracon. I don't necessarily know the timeline. But there are some amazing stuff that are coming out in Inertia adjacent things, specifically for types. So that's one thing that I've always wanted, but it's one step closer. And so I'll leave it very vague for now, mostly because I don't know how much I want to share or how much the team wants me to share right now. But there's some cool things coming out, and that you'll probably find more about at Laracon. I don't know if this is a post Laracon or a pre Laracon or even a at Laracon thing. But I'm sure if you follow us on YouTube as well as Twitter, you will see more info about this specifically from Joe Tannenbaum and his team. Do you think Laravel potentially have first-party support for composite keys? I seem to keep running into them when rebuilding legacy applications. I personally don't know what composite keys are. Let me check. I actually don't. I actually don't know the answer to that. Let me see. Composite keys. A primary key that consists of two or more attributes, columns, that when combined uniquely identify each record in a table. Okay, so within a database, composite keys. Yeah, I don't know. I know that there's a specific discussion on it from a couple years back. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not that closely into all open source stuff, but it's something I can definitely look into. It's never something that's come up for me, so I'm curious of like what the maybe you can give me a TLDR of like what is the use case that is usually needed for composite keys. So like I know foreign keys, for example, is something that has come up recently because a lot of there's people who kind of know that, okay, foreign keys can hurt at scale. And so I'm curious if this is kind of something different, maybe in the inverse as well. Yeah, I haven't come up to even learn about composite keys. So yeah, let me know in like a TLDR of like what do composite keys do for an application in that sense. I'm curious to know. But yeah, I know that there's a couple of discussions, but I would say best case is also opening maybe like a second discussion, or I don't think this would probably be an issue within the Laravel framework, but another discussion. It looks like the one that I'm looking at is from 2023, so a little bit of a way to go. Saving files to cloud storage is ephemeral according to Laravel Cloud documentation. So it is ephemeral if you are not using a bucket. So let's say you are saving to disk and you have your environment variable set up to use the disk storage. It's not going to save to a permanent place because there is no storage. There's no disk in the sense that there is no permanent file storage on your server, if that makes sense. And so using the Cloud's bucket is the way to then properly store a file that you need for long-term storage. And so that's when you would use the Cloudflare R2 buckets from Laravel Cloud. So if you add a bucket in your graph, in your project detail page, then that will automatically be linked, and you can use the storage facade using the default disk. Will then push it to that bucket, unless you name it specifically different or don't want it to be default. Then you can use the storage facade as well. But it is S3 compatible, so it pushes directly to that bucket. A deal from Azerbaijan. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Thanks so much. Yeah, this is a great question. So why does Laravel introduce tools like Telescope and Pulse, but once newer tools like Nightwatch are released, it almost seems like the older ones are being questioned or sidelined, for example? Yeah, I can understand how it might seem that way. So Jess kind of answered this on the Nightwatch Q&A stream last week. And so Jess is one of the folks who created Laravel Pulse as well as Laravel Nightwatch. And it's one of those things where I think they serve different purposes. So Telescope and Pulse still get updates in the sense that there are things that are added as well as updated within Laravel Telescope and Pulse. They are not archived projects. They are still active in the sense that if there are issues, they are being worked on. If there is stuff that can be added or updated to like Laravel 10, Laravel 11, Laravel 12, stuff like that. There are stuff that works for that. But yeah, I would say that for the most part, Nightwatch would be a product in the sense that we want to make it as good as possible for our customers. And so it's probably going to, it's going to have a lot more features than Telescope and Pulse, mostly because it's stuff that we can control. But Telescope and Pulse, I would say, still have purposes. We have versus pages, and that's not meant to be like, oh, we're combating our own products. But on the Laravel Nightwatch landing page, there's a versus page for Nightwatch versus Telescope, as well as Nightwatch versus Pulse. They kind of link through those details. But really, Telescope, I would say, is a great local tool. It's basically what Nightwatch for local is necessary. And like we don't Like that's a great use case for Telescope. Pulse is a great use case if you want that flexibility, that custom ability to say, I want everything to be seen at a glance. I was actually talking to someone at Laravel Live who they use Laravel Pulse as a TV dashboard in their office to be able to say, hey, I want to see how all my servers are looking, if there's any issues, any exceptions, any long-standing queries, and they just have it kind of being displayed because they have that flexibility within Pulse to create those custom dashboards. And it's being displayed on a TV in their office. And Nightwatch probably wouldn't be a good use case for that, mostly because it's almost too much. You probably wouldn't want to see all of that on a TV all at once. So yeah, I don't think they're being questioned or sidelined. It's more of just different use cases for different things. And they're still being actively worked on as well. Yeah, I'm new to the community. Well, glad to have you here, Fad. Thanks so much for joining us. And can you tell me what Laracon is? So Laracon is the Laracon US is what I'm talking about specifically for this. It is the flagship, I guess if you want to call it that, flagship community event where we come together. And most of the Laravel team is there. Taylor Otwell is there. Fantastic speakers there this year. If you go to laracon.us, I'll put it in the chat. Laracon.us is where you can find more information. But so Evan Yu is going to be there from Vue. I know that Adam Wathen is going to be there from Tailwind CSS, as well as Jeffrey Way from Lyricast. It's going to be a fantastic amount of speakers there in the sense that just a fully stacked speaker set, but then also really the goal of Laracon is to get inspired by people who are also building with Laravel. And so it's a lot of fantastic ways to meet new people, to learn new things, but then also just to be able to meet new friends in the sense that I think Laracon is a great way to just kind of say, hey, here's so many cool things that these people are building, and then maybe you can go and build cool things as well. So it is the flagship community event. It is 2 days, fantastic speakers, but really just one chance for, and there's multiple Laracons around the world. There's multiple Laravel meetups around the world, but Laracon US is one of the ways that the Laravel team as a whole gets to kind of come together and with the community and kind of get to see how everything is working, but also get to have updates about Laravel as well. Manicon from India. I know I'm still pretty behind on the chat, so I apologize, everyone. Let's say, hey, Shane, glad to have you here. White Monster. There we go. White Monster Ultra is the only good one. So yeah, I'm still behind on the chat, everyone, but everyone who's just joining, looks like I'm about 20 minutes behind on the chat. I apologize. But thank you so much for joining. Keep asking your questions. I'll try to get to them as much as possible. We have about another 30-ish minutes or so that I can stay on. So again, thanks so much for joining. Be sure to like and subscribe so we can continue doing these office hours. It's something that I personally love, personally enjoy. Yeah, if we're going for Monster, it's Strawberry Dream. So, okay, I have not tried that one. I'll have to try it. Tea or green tea, Vishal says. Me specifically, I like iced tea. So this sounds like, it's a perfect Arizona thing to say. That's where I live in Arizona in the US. I like iced tea. I like just black tea that is iced. And usually it's like a passion fruit. Like that's usually my go-to. Shane, now you're on YouTube, but hey, glad to have you here. I apologize. I didn't get to say hi. I'm still a little bit behind. Sweet. So I asked everyone what their drink of choice was for when they're coding or like in the morning. And so Vishal says tea or green tea. Leah says sometimes both coffee and a white Monster. Ashley, 3 drinks, MCP coffee, Monster Ultra, and weird water. Wow. I don't know what weird water is, but that is excessive. Features like support for Livewire Volt be available in the VS Code extension. I don't necessarily know. I know that that stuff like that is still on the planned roadmap for the VS Code extension. I don't know when that's going to be technically started working on in a lot of ways. There are some great community extensions. There's the one called Voltage that works great with Laravel Livewire Volt, as well as the VS Code extension. So they kind of pair together. Laravel Nightwatch, the fastest way to discover Laravel, has a lot of events. That is true. I've heard a lot of people say that. Like, I didn't know I had 200,000 events right out the gate. Mohammed from Pakistan, Glad to have you here. Hi from Abuja, Nigeria. What new features can we be on watch out for on Laravel at the second half of the year? In terms of the framework itself, I don't necessarily know off the top of my head, but there'll probably be some great ones. I know that the team is constantly and consistently improving new things that, you know, there's so many new things that come out each week that it amazes me. Vishal, Friday night for you. Glad to have you here. Mobile development with Laravel. It's not something that I'm currently working on, but I know that the native PHP team has been working on it. There's been fantastic updates. I know Shane was in the chat earlier, so that's something that I would say keep an eye on for sure. Will we learn more about Nightwatch at Laracon? I don't necessarily think there's going to be a Nightwatch update. It probably is going to be maybe a small update, or maybe just a, hey, here's what happened with Nightwatch. I know that Tim McDonald, who is one of the developers at Laravel and who has been working on Nightwatch, is going to be speaking. So that might be something to keep an eye for. All right, let me keep going. I know I'm still behind, but thank you everyone for joining. I know that we have a ton of comments, so I'm still going down. I might skip a couple, so I apologize. I apologize if I skip your comments, but I am quite behind, so I'm gonna run through these as fast as possible. I apologize. I didn't mean to skip over your question about AI development in Laravel. I'm more behind in comments than I usually am. So that's great. I love to have all you guys here. I love to have all the comments. But yeah, be sure to ask it again. I'll try to find it. But yeah, Ashley Hindle, hoping to make it to Laracon US, there has some great content around AI development within Laravel and specifically MCPs within Laravel. It's some fantastic stuff. Even Florian says you have to come show your awesome CLI stuff. Let's go ahead and see. All right. Yeah, again, past Michael, make sure to share your question again. If I miss it, if I miss your question, be sure to share it again. I am skipping a couple, mostly just because I'm trying to get through as many questions as possible, but I'm glad that you all are here. It's been fantastic. Aaron Francis says, I'm up to a lot. Yep. So I don't know if he has the time to do that local first stuff. So maybe someone else will have to do it. And again, it's been on my mind, so I've been tinkering around with it, slowly but surely. Am I obliged to deploy my lap on Laravel Cloud to use Nightwatch? Obliged is the weird word here in this context, but no, you're not. You can use Laravel Nightwatch regardless of where you deploy. We have, and let me go ahead and kind of share my screen again. So Laravel Nightwatch has the ability to be deployed anywhere. In the sense, deployed if you are deploying your application anywhere. So we have guides specifically for Laravel Cloud, for Laravel Forge, and even Laravel Vapor. This is a guide that I want to point all to you as well. For those who are using Laravel Vapor, that was one of the things that kind of came up a lot. There will be a video coming out kind of walking through this. It's basically how to set up an EC2 instance on Laravel Forge, or you can do it manually as well, that then points to your Laravel application within Laravel Vapor. But there are some other guides for providers in our documentation, and let us know if there's something that you're missing here, if your application is running somewhere else. So there's a guide for Linux servers, as well as like if you're using Supervisor, for example. And so all of these are like, if you are deploying your application wherever, not just on Laravel Cloud, you are obliged to use Laravel Nightwatch regardless. So yeah, you can use Laravel Cloud. It's a one simple install if you are using Laravel Cloud, and even if you are using Laravel Forge, again, super quick, super easy to install. But if you're using anything else, it's fairly easy as well. As long as you have a long-running instance that is able to use the PHP Artisan Nightwatch agent command, then you are good to go. But yeah, great question. It will work for every route. Yeah, so Laravel Nightwatch will work for every route. If you're using this route sampling, that can work for every route as well. So like, then that just samples specifically from your overall samples. It samples it down even more, I believe. Again, I don't know if it resets it. That's something that I want to double check as well, of how that sampling percentages works when you're kind of narrowing it down by route. Perfect. And code 755, we kind of already chatted about this, but I want to make sure I point it out again. Does Nightwatch make Pulse a kind of has-been? I don't think so, because I think Pulse is great for the kind of overall first glance. It is something that you host specifically, and is something that you have control over from a customizable standpoint. And Nightwatch might not ever have that customization aspect, in the sense that you might not be able to say, hey, I want my dashboard to look like this. And that's a great thing for Pulse. Pulse doesn't even need to necessarily be monitoring your application. For example, there are people who are using Pulse to monitor, to look, to view things across your application that are not just database stuff. Maybe it's specifically within, specifically custom events that are happening within your application, even custom. I know people have done it for custom external things like, hey, here's new blog posts that are coming in. So Pulse is just a great way, is a dashboard functionality in order to have those queries happen. And so I would say it's not a has-been. It just makes I think it distinguishes the differences from what you would use Pulse for and what you would use Nightwatch for. Great. Again, I apologize if I skip over your question. I'm going to try to dive down as quick as possible. I'm only 10 minutes behind on questions now, or 10 minutes behind on chat now. So everyone who's saying hi, glad to have you here. I'm not ignoring you. It's only I've been behind on chat a little bit, but we are about 10 minutes behind on my chat right now. So I'm diving as quickly as possible. Glad to have you here. Abbas from India, glad to have you here. Vishal, hey, glad to have you here as well. Dulio, I'm using Laravel Cloud plus Laravel Nightwatch, and it's amazing. Hi from Brazil. Glad to have you here. Perfect. I love it. Mary says it's going to be awesome. Mary is going to be a fantastic speaker at Laracon US. So if you want to hear Mary speak, then Laracon US is the place to be. That's for sure. Brazil from Jackson. Awesome. Perfect. Glad to have you here. Mo on. I did answer this question about buckets in Laravel Cloud. This was at the kind of start of the live stream, probably about minute 20-ish or so. But yeah, as long as you're using Laravel Cloud's buckets that are attached, then you just use the AWS S3 file converter in the docs. So in the docs, it shows you how to install that, and then you just use the storage facade. So yeah, be sure to check in it's about 20 minutes into the live stream, I believe, when I answered that. If I'm drinking iced tea, it has to be sweet tea. See, that's where I can disagree, Leah. I do drink sweet tea, but it is not as refreshing to me. So I can't drink sweet tea in the morning, for example. But I can drink unsweet iced tea at any time of the day, even at night, right before I go to bed. Let's go ahead and see what are the advantages of using Laravel Cashier when integrating Stripe payments into a Laravel application. Basically, it makes you not want to cut your arm off in a lot of ways. And I mean that kind of tongue in cheek, but Laravel Stripe, for example, is very difficult to work with in the sense that its API constantly changes. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's bad, in the sense that sometimes it's difficult to kind of continue to be added. And Cashier allows you to then interact with Stripe and say, okay, because this particular API. So I would say one of the things that if I was setting up a new Laravel application, I need to take payments, I would use Laravel Stripes. I would probably use Laravel. I'd probably use Laravel Cashier, and then I would use Stripe checkout links. And then that kind of gives me a good middle of the ground, both options. So I think the advantages is you are just interacting with Stripe in an easier and cleaner way than having to write all of the webhooks, all of the API stuff by hand. That's the big key difference. And yeah, happy to talk about Laravel and mobile apps. So those who are asking in the question about Laravel and mobile apps, Shane is one of the people working on native PHP. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Jackson, hey, hi to Brazil. Hi to Brazil. Jackson, glad to have you here. Let's go ahead. Sugar right before bed. Well, I drink unsweetened tea, so it wouldn't be sugar right before bed for me. Awesome. We are caught up with the chat. So I'm glad to have you all here. If I did not answer your question, if you are still here in the chat and you would like to ask a question, that is the main goal of today. Being able to hang out with you all has been fantastic. But if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for. And again, thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with me. Be sure to like and subscribe in order to, we like to do these office hours consistently, and I'd love to do more of them as well. Currently, they're about once a month, but maybe we'll switch it up to maybe once every other week in a lot of ways. Yeah, composite keys. Okay. Only us older folks would probably know this, but back in the day when adding additional columns like a dedicated ID column was expensive, we used what were called natural primary keys, which are columns that already exist in the table that can be used as primary keys, but oftentimes you could not find one, which meant that you included 2 or more existing columns for your primary key, which, wait for it, were called composite keys. Okay, very interesting. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I've never personally ran up into that issue, but I can see when you do, it probably is tricky to handle. I'm curious, I didn't do a large search for it, but I'm curious if this has kind of been already solved in the sense that have other people within Laravel use composite keys? Is there a package out there? That would be something to maybe kind of check on as well. But yeah. Thank you all so much for being here. One of the things I want to kind of ask you to do, if you are watching this, you're watching this right now, if you are on Twitter, if you're on X, I have some homework for you. If you're still tuned in, if you're still watching this, again, be sure to ask any questions. I'm still going to be here for probably another 7-ish minutes or so before we'll call it a day. But yeah, I have some homework for you on Twitter. Let us know. I want you to answer kind of this question. You can say that Josh from Office Hours asked me this question. I want to know, what is your favorite feature about Laravel? So we kind of had it in the chat, little things about like what features that you miss or wished existed within Laravel framework, but what is your favorite feature about Laravel? And this could be the framework, could be a product. So be sure to post on Twitter or on X. That's my homework that I'm going to give to you. What is your favorite feature about Laravel? You can say Josh from Office Hours sent you. I'll kind of answer my question. I'll post it on Twitter as well. But my favorite feature about the framework is, by and large, my favorite feature is queues. It seems like a very, very overarching thing, but queues is kind of what got me into learning Laravel, because when I was working within a JavaScript backend, I was mostly working within serverless JavaScript, specifically within like Next.js and serverless functions and all of this. I needed to do this thing where I was building an AI application. This was like a couple years ago, so AI was pretty new. So I was one of the forefront leaders. But I was building a application. It became my first SaaS product, and I was building it in JavaScript at the time. And I needed to, when someone inputted basically this Word document or PDF, I needed to take all those questions or scrape all the questions out of that. I needed to one by one ask those questions to AI with a bunch of context. So using embedded documents, I needed to use vector search to find related documents and then use those as context. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to do that. And I ended up learning Laravel specifically because of queues and job batching, where I could chain specific jobs to say, okay, after this whole job is complete, then do this. And for every single instance that this user runs this particular application, it would kick off around 1,500 to 2,000 jobs. And they would run it one by one, and it would run it in sequential order, just like I needed it, because I needed information from the past job. And Laravel just made it incredibly easy. So that's my favorite feature about the framework. It was just like I didn't know PHP when I started learning Laravel, and I just reading documentation, asking Copilot at the time. Like again, this was 2.5 years ago. I learned so much about how to best do this, and it took me like a weekend to implement. Code with Dennis, a very important question. How do I pronounce your last name? Yeah, so my last name is pronounced Cirre. So just like the iPhone, I apologize for anyone's iPhone that I just kickstarted and initiated right there. My name is Josh Cirre. Cirre is my last name, and that is how you pronounce it. So if you think of the iPhone, it's a lot easier, just spelled a lot differently. Yeah, Dakar, nice to see you here. Glad to have you here. Yeah, you're on Twitter as well, so make sure to post again for those in the chat. And thank you so much for joining, first of all. But yeah, my homework to you is, what is your favorite feature about Laravel? Make sure to post on Twitter. Say, Josh from Office Hours asked me this question. My favorite feature about the Laravel framework is ... Yeah, there are many features, but if I had to choose one that has very awesome validation feature. Fantastic. No, that's a great one. I actually have a YouTube video. Let's go ahead and pull this up. I made a YouTube video about validation that is on the Laravel official channel. Basically, it's called Validate That Data. Basically, Laravel validation, an overview of Laravel validation in 3 minutes. And I love making videos like that because it gives me a chance to be able to look at specific features within Laravel, specific features within the framework, specific features within our products, and learn about them at an even more granular scale. So I learned so much about validation, and the number of validation queries that are out of the box within Laravel is incredible. There's so many things that you're like, oh, I don't have to manually do that regex for this. If you do want it, Laravel has a validation regex where you can just type your regex there. But there's so much that kind of already comes out of the box within validation. Even if you wanted to validate if an email is a valid email, not valid, not in the sense that can you send email to it? I believe that is one of the validation features. There's so many, so many. Yeah, Abhinam. Hopefully I pronounced that right. That's one of my favorite features too. I love it. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Jobs and queues in Laravel is definitely one of the best features. I love it. Code with Dennis, mystery solved. Yes, mystery of my last name. My favorite feature is the community. Morgan, that's awesome. I love it. Well, we're glad to have you here, Morgan, and I agree. The community of Laravel is fantastic. It is awesome. Another community. My favorite feature of Laravel is actually the community. Perfect. I love it. One more question. Inertia.js, is it good for SEO with SSR? Of course, I think it is. Aaron Francis, a friend of Laravel, he was actually in the chat earlier. I don't know if he still is, but he just released a video about some tips for Laravel Inertia in building out his new website. And it's built completely with Inertia with SSR enabled because it's great for SEO, because every single page that is then built within Inertia is then server-side rendered. So SSR within Inertia is either like an on or off kind of toggle. You can't have individual pages that are server-side rendered. If you turn on SSR, everything, you probably could actually within the Inertia setup, you could probably specify which group of pages are, but out of the box, everything within the pages folder is then server-side rendered. And so it is perfect to have SEO capabilities for that. Mateus, hello. How are you? How is work going? Hopefully you've been doing great. Patricio, it seems he's everywhere at any time. You are correct. Is there a common class to standardize API responses? I would say in that case, like the best thing to think through is, I would say like the best case to think through is you have I believe, what are they called? So you have JSON resources, and I would say that would probably be a good standardized API response in the sense that you can pick and choose what is being sent back to your API. A lot of people who are using Inertia use them as well. I believe that's what your question is you're answering. Maybe you're asking something different. Florian says there's API platform. So maybe that's like the answer to your question that you're asking as well, in the sense that outside of Laravel. But yeah, I'm going to call it for today. Again, my homework for you all, if you are still here, again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all those fun things that make it better for us. But at the same time, thank you again. Like everyone else said, my favorite part about Laravel, if I was talking about not the framework, is definitely the community. It's been awesome to be able to hang out with you, to be able to chat with you, to be able to have some fun. I apologize, I got so far behind in chat, but there's so many of you asking questions and just commenting. So I truly appreciate that. I truly love it. Yeah, my homework for you, if you are still watching this on Twitter, on X, on LinkedIn, post what your favorite Laravel feature of the Laravel framework is. Say that Josh from Office Hours sent you or asked you this question. You can tag me, you can tag Laravel, whichever one works best. But thank you so much for being here with us, for hanging out with us, and hope to see you at the next Office Hours. Again, hopefully it might be next month. We'll let you know more specifically, but every time that you're here has been a great time, and thank you so much for everyone for joining. So my code is compiling. It seems like that's what Matthias is here, because I think Florian was getting on him for a little bit about if you were on lunch break. Can I say that I'm waiting for my tests to run? Exactly. My answer now is I'm just waiting for Claude Code to finish up. Leah, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully the rest of your day is great. Same with you, Mary. Morgan, thank you so much. Florian, have a great weekend. And like Florian said, goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you all have a fantastic evening, fantastic morning, fantastic night, and you have a great weekend as well. So thank you so much for joining Laravel Office Hours. I loved it. See ya.